The chase begins. The wind howled over the sharp rocks of the desert planet Orvac 7. Its twin suns hung low, casting long shadows across the red sand. From far away, a figure sprinted through the canyon floor, fast, graceful, silent. She was not human. Her skin was violet blue, smooth and glowing under the suns. Her long white hair flew behind her like a comet's tail. Her name was Shari. She ran barefoot, her 4 toes gripping the rocks easily. Her breathing was steady. Her heart, however, was racing not from fear, but from the thrill. Behind her, alarms blared from a human outpost she had just escaped. Shari smiled to herself. Foolish humans. They think they can lock up a Zavarian? She was trained for this. Born to run, raised to survive. She believed no one could catch her. Especially not a human. But miles behind her, someone was already tracking her. Sergeant Kane adjusted the strap on his rifle and knelt in the sand. He touched the ground with gloved fingers. The footprints were fresh, light, and fast. She was fast, but not careful enough. He smiled, just a little. The chase had begun. Kane was no ordinary soldier. He was special operations, years of silent missions, jungle hunts, urban traps. He'd tracked invisible shapeshifters and caught enemies who could teleport. One alien girl running on foot? This was almost fun. He stood and moved again, slow. Silent, patient. Shari leapt over a dried riverbed and landed in a low crouch. Her ears twitched. She looked back. Nothing. Not a sound. She pressed her hand to a rock and activated her tracking implant. A soft hum. No threats nearby, but it was wrong. Kane had destroyed his own tracker long ago. He didn't want his own base following him either. He didn't trust anyone. Not after what he saw happen to the other captives. The alien girl wasn't a prisoner. She was evidence. Shari kept running, choosing high ground now. From a ledge, she scanned the horizon. No ships, no drones. Good. Still no sign of pursuit. She crouched beside a thorny bush and took out a nutrient capsule from her belt. She chewed it quickly, wiped sweat from her brow, and laughed softly. "They'll search for hours," she whispered. "By then, I'll be across the rift." That's when a stone rolled behind her. She spun fast, ready to run again. But she saw nothing, just wind, just a rock. Or so she thought. Kane had stopped moving. He was 10 meters away, lying flat under a camouflage cloak, blending into the sand. He watched her silently through his scope, heart calm, breath controlled. She's smart, fast, but she checks behind too often. That means she's nervous. He didn't take the shot. He didn't want her dead. He wanted answers. Shari moved again. Kane followed slowly, always behind cover. She took a path near an old lava trench, thinking no one would risk the unstable ground. She was wrong again. Kane moved like a shadow, carefully choosing every step, watching her rhythm. She ran like a dancer, but she repeated patterns. He waited for her to slow, and when she did, he closed the gap, fast running now. Not silently but swiftly. Shari's ears twitched again. This time, she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, fast, human. She cursed and pushed herself harder. Her muscles screamed, but she didn't stop. She darted through narrow canyons, leaping over stone ledges, kicking up red dust. But no matter how fast she ran, the footsteps kept coming. Kane had removed his gear now, wearing only light armor. Every breath he took was measured. Every motion exact. His mind was locked on her, like a hawk. He didn't need to see her anymore. He could hear her. He could smell the heat of her sweat in the dry wind. Shari jumped down a small ravine and made a mistake. Her foot slipped on loose gravel. She rolled, landed hard, and hissed in pain. Her ankle twisted. Just a little. But enough. She got up. Limping. And that was all Kane needed. With the silence of a ghost, he dropped down the ravine behind her. She tried to run again, forcing the limp into a skip, but he was already too close. She didn't even hear him coming this time. Just felt it suddenly. A strong leg hooked around hers and yanked her down. She screamed and hit the dirt. A powerful leg lock pinned her to the ground. "No more running," Kane said, his voice calm but deep. She struggled, clawing the rocks, trying to kick. But his grip was perfect, firm, controlled, like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Let me go," she shouted, baring her teeth. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. "But I will stop you." She froze. Her mind was racing. This wasn't like she was told. Humans were supposed to shoot, to burn, to capture and torture. But this one, he caught her like she mattered, not with chains, not with pain, just with skill. And the chase was over, but the story was just beginning. Shari lay still in the dust, her chest rising and falling fast. The leg lock still held her, but the human wasn't hurting her. He was calm, focused, watching her with sharp eyes like a hunter who had already won. Her heart pounded not from pain, but confusion. "Why didn't you kill me?" she asked, her voice low. Kane didn't answer right away. He slowly let go of her leg and stepped back. She didn't move. She didn't trust him yet. He reached into his belt and tossed a small water pod toward her. "You'll need it. This desert won't be kind to either of us," he said. She narrowed her eyes. "You think giving me water will make me trust you?" "No, I think dying of thirst would be a stupid end for someone like you," Kane replied. She picked up the pot and drank, but kept watching him the whole time. Kane sat on a flat rock nearby and looked up at the two suns overhead. "You're fast, smarter than most. But you ran in a circle." Her eyes widened. She didn't even realize it. She thought she'd escaped the outpost by heading east, but in truth, Kane had used the wind and terrain to trap her without her knowing. That made her nervous. She had never been caught before, never even seen someone keep up with her. "You were trained," she said, her voice quieter now. Kane nodded. "Once, special ops. I've tracked things twice your speed, invisible ones too." She tilted her head. "Why follow me? What do you want?" "You were escaping," he said simply, "but not from us. I saw your face when you saw the scientists. That wasn't fear of humans, it was fear of something else." She flinched. A flash of memory came to her mind. The cold metal room. The alien captors in white coats, not humans, not soldiers. They wore masks and gave orders with false promises. She had trusted them once and paid for it. "You're not like them," she whispered. Kane heard it, but didn't press her. Instead, he stood up and said, "If you want to run again, go ahead, but I won't chase you this time." She blinked. "You're letting me go?" "I caught you. That was the mission," he said. "Now I want the truth. Who were you really running from?" She didn't answer. She just stood up, slowly, testing her leg. "It hurt, but not broken." "You're strange," she muttered. "So are you," he replied, with a slight smile. They walked for a while, no words, just the sound of dry wind and their footsteps in the sand. Shari limped slightly but refused to ask for help. Kane didn't offer. They stopped near a rocky overhang where some shade kept the heat away. Kane took out a small emergency shelter pod and pressed a button. It opened with a soft hiss, inflating into a half dome with basic supplies. Shari stared at it, unsure. "Temporary rest. Then we part ways, if that's what you want," Kane said. "Why help me?" "Because I saw your eyes in that cell. You weren't a prisoner. You were bait." Shari's hands clenched. "They told me humans would come for me, that you'd hurt me. And instead, you caught me. But you didn't harm me," she admitted, still confused by it. Kane poured himself a small drink and sat in the shade. "You were being used. I don't know by who or why, but I don't like it." Shari sat across from him. Her eyes watched his hands, his posture, every movement. She didn't trust him fully, but something in her instinct said he was different, honest. She slowly reached into her side pouch and pulled out a strange device, a glowing blue chip. They told me this was medicine, a tracker. I believed them, but when I started having visions, I knew it was a lie. Kane took the chip carefully and examined it. It wasn't human tech. It pulsed like it was alive. This isn't medicine. It's biological tech. This is how they control you. Her jaw tightened. Then they'll come for it. And me, Kane nodded. That's what I was afraid of. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the canyon distant. Engines, not human aircraft. The noise was deeper, almost like growling metal. They're tracking the chip, Kane said, standing up quickly. They weren't trying to stop you from escaping. They were watching who found you. Shari's eyes widened. They set a trap. And you walked into it. Then let's make sure we don't walk into the next one, Kane said, tossing her a small stun blaster. She caught it in shock. You're giving me a weapon? Do you want to survive or not? Shari looked at him, truly looked at him, a human strong and strange, offering help without demand. She didn't know if she should trust him. But for now, she had no choice. They disappeared into the rocks together, two hunted beings now moving as one. The rocks were hot under their feet as Kane and Shari climbed higher into the red hills. The engine sounds behind them had faded, but both knew the enemy wasn't far. They moved fast, silent, careful not to leave tracks. Shari had never traveled beside a human before. She kept glancing at him, his movements, his balance, the way he scanned the land ahead like a hawk. He wasn't just strong. He was trained, alert, always 2 steps ahead. You walk like you've done this your whole life, she finally said. I have, Kane replied. You? I've spent my life running, Kane didn't respond. They kept walking. The silence between them was strange. Not heavy, but not comfortable either. Suddenly, Shari raised her hand and stopped. Her ears twitched. She crouched low, placing her hand on the ground. They're close, she whispered. 3, maybe 4. Fast. Kane pulled out his visor lens and scanned the horizon. Tiny heat signatures moved in the canyon below them. Drones, he said. Small scouts. Not human-made. Probably from your captors. Shari's face darkened. They're not my people. You know what they want? She nodded. They want the chip. They want me alive, but only to keep control over the others. Others? Kane asked, his voice sharp now. Shari hesitated. She looked away, then back at him. I wasn't the only one. There were many of us. From different species. Captured. Modified. The chip inside me lets them watch. Test ... control. Behavior. Kane's jaw tightened. And the humans who caught you? They were hired to transport us, not knowing the truth. Most were just doing a job, but one man knew, a doctor. He watched me too closely. Kane's eyes narrowed. That same doctor was at the outpost, the one I never trusted. Shari looked at him with a question in her eyes. Then why didn't you stop him? Kane sighed. I was too focused on orders. They fell silent again. Then a sudden sound buzzing, sharp cut through the air. One of the drones had spotted them. Run! Kane barked, grabbing her arm and pulling her through the narrow stone pass. They sprinted. Rocks crumbled underfoot. The drone zipped through the sky, firing a signal flare. In moments, more buzzes echoed behind them. Kane spun and fired. The small blaster cracked with blue light. The drone exploded, sparks falling to the ground. But more came. Shari jumped to the side, flipped off a rock wall, and kicked another drone mid-air. It spun, crashed, and smoke. Kane turned. For a moment, he just stared. You've trained before. Zavarian fighters are born in the wild, she said. We learn balance before we learn words. Kane smirked. Then try not to fall. They leapt into a narrow cave opening, just as the drones fired at their backs. Stone chipped and cracked behind them, but they were safe, at least for now. Inside, the cave was dark, cool, and silent. Kane lit a small lamp. The light showed markings on the wall, strange curved symbols. Shari stared at them. These are old. From the wards of Kira. My people once hid in caves like this. You think this is a safe place? Kane asked. She didn't answer. She just touched the wall gently. This cave remembers the lost. Kane walked deeper in. Then we make it our shelter. For now. They sat in silence. Kane checked his ammo. Shari sat with her back against the rock. Her eyes watched him quietly. You saved me again. She said, you kicked a drone mid-air. I'd say we're even. A small smile touched her lips. She looked down at her arm where the implant was still glowing faintly under her skin. It still pulses, she said. Still sends signals. Then we remove it, Kane said. Shari's eyes widened. You can do that? I've removed worse from soldiers behind enemy lines. He pulled out a medkit and small laser scalpel. Shari hesitated, but nodded. Do it quickly. She lay still on the cave floor, arms stretched. Kane cleaned the skin, then started. The blade hissed as it cut gently. Shari winced but didn't scream. Kane worked fast, precise. Within minutes, he pulled out the chip, a glowing living thing, small like a seed. Shari looked at it with both fear and hate. Destroy it. Kane crushed it under his boot. The glow died instantly. It's done, he said. Shari sat up, sweating but relieved. I feel lighter. Kane gave her a drink and helped bandage the cut. Suddenly she asked, why are you helping me like this? You could have just turned me in. Kane looked her in the eye. Because I followed bad orders before, not again. Shari stared back, her voice soft. Then maybe I'll stop running too. For the first time, she didn't look like prey anymore. She looked like someone ready to fight back. And Kane knew this wasn't just his mission anymore. They were in it together. The cave air was still. Outside, the suns began to lower, casting a soft red glow over the jagged rocks. Inside, Kane checked the perimeter one last time before. Returning to where Shari sat, leaning against the wall, half asleep, he crouched near her, watching her breathing. The wound on her arm was clean and healing. Her face, once sharp with fear and pride, now looked peaceful. Almost too peaceful. But Kane didn't trust peace. Not here, not yet. Suddenly, Shari's eyes snapped open. She stared straight into his. Someone's close, she whispered. Kane nodded. He had felt it too, an itch in the air, a presence that didn't belong. He grabbed his rifle and handed her a small blade. Shari moved like a shadow to the cave entrance, her back brushing the walls. The warmth from earlier was gone. The silence was different now. Not quiet waiting. Kane crouched beside her and raised his scope. A few meters beyond the rocks, he saw movement shimmering, low to the ground. Not human, cloaking tech. He muttered, ground units. Shari's hands tightened around the blade. They've come to collect their experiment. They won't, Kane said. 3 figures appeared from the shadows, slim, armored in black organic suits. Their heads were covered in smooth masks with glowing red eyes. Each held a stun staff, humming with electric force. One of them stepped forward and called out in a calm, robotic voice. Subjet 24XE, return the body. The data is incomplete. Shari's body tensed. She stepped out just far enough to be seen. I am not your subject. You belong to us. Surrender and the pain will be reduced, the voice replied. Kane stood beside her now. She's not going anywhere with you. The red eyes turned toward him. You are human. You do not understand the consequences. Kane raised his rifle. Try me. In a blink, the 3 figures rushed forward. Shari moved like lightning, ducking under the first attacker's swing, twisting around and slashing the back of his leg with her blade. Sparks flew as the armor cracked. Kane shot. Twice, one hit the rock. The other struck a second attacker in the shoulder. The stun staff dropped from his hand. The third figure came straight at Kane, fast and silent. Kane barely blocked the staff with his arm guard, then struck low with his knee. The enemy stumbled back, but not for long. Shari jumped in, flipping off the cave wall and kicking the figure square in the face. The mask cracked, revealing gray skin underneath. "These are not machines," she gasped. "They're hybrids." "Modified soldiers," Kane said, breathing hard. The last attacker pressed a button on his belt. A low beep began to echo. Kane's eyes widened. "It's calling backup. We need to leave now." Shari and Kane moved fast, climbing out of the cave through a crack on the side. Behind them, the attackers didn't chase. Instead, they knelt and began melting into the ground, literally disappearing into the rock. What was that?" Shari asked as they ran through the darkening canyon. "New tech. Biofused. Probably grown, not born." Shari shivered. "They're making living weapons now." They found shelter in a deep crevice, small but hidden. Kane dropped his gear and checked their supplies. "We won't make it far on this," he said. "Water's low, no signal for help." Shari looked at him. "I know a place." Kane raised an eyebrow. "There's an old Zavarian ruin," she said. "Before they captured me, I escaped to it once. It has a hidden well and maybe supplies." "Where?" he asked. 3 days' walk. East." Kane didn't hesitate. "Then we start at first light." Shari leaned back against the rock wall. "You could still turn me in. Why keep doing this?" Kane sat beside her. "Because now I know they're after something bigger than just you." "What do you mean?" "That chip, what if it wasn't? Just a tracker? What if it was a seed? What if they planted it in you to grow something else?" Shari went pale. "A link. A control signal. They didn't care if you lived," King continued. "They just wanted to know who found you." Shari whispered, "Then we need to find out what else they've planted." Silence stretched between them. After a long pause, Shari said softly, "I hated humans. I was told you burned our lands, hunted us like animals. But you caught me without hurting me. You removed the thing that was killing me. And now you fight for me." Kane looked at her. "Not for you." "With you," she smiled faintly. For the first time, it wasn't forced. That night, the stars above Orvac 7 blinked faintly. And somewhere in the dark hills, 2 fugitives, 1 human. 1 alien rested side by side, knowing the war ahead was just beginning. The morning air on Orvac 7 was cold and sharp, biting at their skin like needles. Kane and Shari moved quickly over the jagged hills, their footsteps careful, their eyes scanning every ridge. The desert was quiet again, but both of them knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. They were heading east toward the ruins. Shari remembered. She hadn't been there in years. Maybe longer. It was a place her people once called sacred, hidden from scanners, carved into the rocks by hands. Older than memory. "I never thought I'd go back," Shari said, walking beside Kane. "You think there'll be shelter?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "But if anything's left, it'll be buried beneath." "Buried under what?" She pointed toward the horizon. "A field of bones." Kane didn't ask more. They traveled in silence, but something had shifted between them. The way Shari no longer glanced over her shoulder with suspicion. The way Kane checked her limp before his own wounds. 2 survivors now walking like partners. Around midday, they reached a narrow pass between 2 cliffs. The rocks here were smooth, wind-shaped, almost polished. Strange symbols were etched into them, some glowing faintly when Shari passed her hand near. She whispered, "The spirits still remember us." Kane didn't believe in spirits, but he didn't say so. Not here. Not now. Suddenly, Shari stopped. Her ears twitched. Her body froze. Cain raised his weapon. What is it? She didn't speak. Instead, she dropped to the ground and pressed her ear against the rock. Then she pointed to a crack in the cliff wall. Someone's inside. Cain knelt down, checked the ground. Footprints. Not fresh, but not too old either. Could be. A trap, he said. Shari nodded. Could also be survivors. They moved closer, slow and quiet. The crack opened into a sloped tunnel. Cain went in first, flashlight steady, weapon ready. Shari followed, blade drawn. The air inside smelled like dust and old metal. Walls of stone blended into carved support beams. Symbols marked the ceilings, some broken, some still pulsing with soft blue light. Then a sound, breathing. Light. Breathing from deeper inside. Cain moved ahead and turned a corner. He stopped. Lying in the shadows were two figures, thin, weak, wrapped in old cloth. One was a child. The other, older, stared up at him with wide, glowing eyes. Shari rushed. Past him. Zavarians, she gasped. They survived. The older one, a female, tried to sit up. Who is he? She asked, voice shaking. A human, Shari said, kneeling. But not like the others. He's with me. The woman looked afraid. They'll come, the ones in black. They took our brothers, took them to the sky. Cain crouched beside her. We've seen them. We're fighting them. The child coughed softly. Cain handed him a water pod. Shari touched the woman's hand. We need to reach the ruins. Can you lead us? The woman nodded weakly. Not far, but the way is cursed. Cain raised an eyebrow. She means, Shari said, there are traps. Old ones. They helped the two Zavarians stand. Slowly, the group moved deeper into the ancient passage. Twice, Cain had to disarm pressure plates. Once, a needle spike shot from the wall and nearly hit his leg. Some welcome, he muttered. Shari smirked. You're still breathing. Finally, they reached the heart of the ruin, a wide round chamber carved into the rock. In the center stood a well, covered in old vines and alien moss. Light from glowing stones above lit the room with pale blue color. Shari ran to the well and pulled the old lever. A deep grinding sound echoed. Then water, cold, clean, rising into a stone bowl. She dipped her hands in and drank. The woman and child followed, trembling but alive. Cain checked the perimeter. This place is hidden. Well, the metal in the walls, Shari explained. It blocks scanners. No signal gets in or out. Cain stared at the strange glowing roots curling along the walls. What is this place really? He asked. Shari turned to him. This was a place of silence, where my people came to disconnect from the machines. No lights, no commands. Only breath and memory. He nodded slowly. It's peaceful. Then the silence broke. A low hum began, vibrating the stone. The child dropped his water bowl. The woman gasped. They found us, she whispered. The black masks. Cain rushed to the entrance tunnel. His scanner showed movement, multiple life forms, fast, not human. Shari grabbed her blade. We stand here, Cain said. We protect the well. She looked at him with fire in her eyes. Then we do it together. They stood side by side at the narrow tunnel, ready for what came next, not as prey, not as fugitives, but as defenders of the forgotten. Asterisk. The glowing roots on the cave walls flickered as the vibration grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Cain tightened his grip on his rifle. Shari stood beside him, holding her blade with steady hands. Behind them, the Zavarian woman and the child huddled near the well, silent but alert. They're close, Cain said. Too close, Shari whispered. We need to lead them away. If they fight us in this tunnel, the whole ruin could collapse. Kane scanned the ancient stone above. Cracks had already formed from past tremors. One blast in here and we're buried. A high-pitched beep echoed closer this time. Shari's eyes narrowed, scout beacons. They mark locations for teleport strikes. That means they're planning to jump in directly, Kane said. They're skipping the door. Suddenly, the tunnel behind them shimmered with red light. A circle of energy burst open, and 3 black armored figures appeared. Their glowing red eyes locked instantly on the defenders. No more running, Kane muttered. He fired first. The bullet struck one attacker's helmet, cracking it. The figure stumbled, sparks flying from its chest. The others lunged forward with inhuman speed. Shari met the second attacker head-on, her body flipping over him. She sliced downward, her blade cutting into his back, but he didn't fall. He twisted and swung his stun rod, catching her side. She cried out but didn't stop moving. Kane tackled the third soldier, both slamming into the stone wall. His rifle was knocked away. He grabbed a knife from his belt and drove it into the soldier's side. Sparks flew. It wasn't blood, it was black fluid. They're not just hybrids, he growled. They're bio-armor with AI control. Shari fought her attacker with fury, using both speed and balance. Her footwork was perfect. She ducked, spun, and struck pressure points on the armor. This time the hybrid dropped. Kane was still locked in a grapple. The soldier's strength was unnatural. Its hand tightened around his neck. Then a blur of movement. Shari rushed in and kicked the side of its helmet. The armor cracked, and Kane shoved the knife deep into the opening. The enemy collapsed, motionless. Shari fell to her knees, panting. Kane helped her up. "You good?" "I've been worse," she said, holding her ribs. More vibrations came from the walls. Shari turned to the Zavarian woman. "There will be more. You have to hide." The woman nodded, quickly leading the child to a narrow tunnel behind the well. "We will stay hidden until your signal." Kane and Shari moved fast, deeper into the ruins. Shari led them through a winding path of stairways and hidden doors, until they reached a chamber with a large stone console, ancient tech, merged with Zavarian roots. "This is it," she said, "the heart of the sanctuary. It controls the seal." "Can it block teleportation?" Kane asked. "Yes," she said, "but only for a short time." Kane handed her a small human power cell. "Will this help?" Shari's eyes widened. "It might overload the node." "That's what I'm counting on." She plugged it in. The console sparked, hissed, and then pulsed with light. The roots on the walls lit up one by one, like veins glowing with fire. "All portals blocked," she said, "for now." Then came a different sound, not machines, not energy, voices. Kane and Shari turned toward the far tunnel. Out of the darkness walked a man, human, wearing a white coat. Shari stepped back, her eyes filled with old fear. "Dr. Yelvin," the man smiled coldly. "You remember me?" Kane aimed his weapon. "You're the one running this?" "I was hired," Yelvin said calmly, "to gather data, to control subjects like her. And now, thanks to you, we've discovered something more valuable." Shari's fists clenched. "What?" "You," Yelvin said, looking at Kane. "A human bonded with a Zavarian, fighting for her, protecting her, that connection. The chip you removed still sent traces. Your thoughts, your feelings, they sensed." Kane's voice turned hard. "We're not your test animals." "No," Yelvin said, smiling wider. "You're the future." Shari charged forward, blade raised. Yelvin didn't flinch. But from the shadows, another hybrid stepped out, taller, heavier, armed. It grabbed Shari mid-swing and slammed her against the wall. Kane fired his rifle into the hybrid's side. The bullets ripped into it, but it kept moving. Kane threw a grenade at its feet and pulled Shari away. The blast shook the entire room. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Shari coughed. The whole ruin. We bring it down, Kane said. Seal this place with them inside. He grabbed a thermal charge from his pack and ran to the core console. Can this open the old floodgate tunnels? Shari nodded, holding her. Sighed. It will collapse the floor. Good. He activated the charge. Shari turned to him. We'll be buried too. Kane looked her in the eyes. Not if we jump. You said there's water below. She nodded slowly. If we time it right. The console blared. The floor cracked. Kane grabbed her hand. Now. They leapt as the stone beneath them gave way. The room above exploded with fire and falling rocks. They plunged into cold darkness, into the underground waters far below. Silence, then light, and both surfaced together alive. Wet, coughing, but alive, the ruins had collapsed. But the war was far from over. The cold water swallowed them, pulling them down through ancient tunnels. The current was strong, twisting through forgotten passageways beneath the ruins. Kane held tightly to Shari's wrist as they were dragged through the dark. Neither spoke. Neither panicked. They had made their choice leap or die. Finally, the current spat them out into a shallow basin, hidden inside a hollow mountain. Above them, light shone from cracks in the stone ceiling. They lay still for a moment, coughing and gasping, their bodies bruised but alive. Shari sat up first. Her silver-white hair clung to her face. She looked around slowly, blinking. We're alive, Kane groaned, rolling over. Barely. The chamber was silent, but peaceful. No sign of hybrids. No sound of engines. Just water dripping from the walls and the faint hum of ancient roots still glowing beneath the surface. Shari stood shakily. Her clothes were torn, her ribs still aching, but her eyes held strength. We did it, she said softly. We stopped. Them. Kane pushed himself up. For now. Yelvin's operation was buried. But people like him don't give up, she nodded. Then we fight again. He looked at her. You're not running anymore. No, she said, voice firm. I'm not prey. I'm not a subject. I'm me. She walked toward a stone platform near the edge of the basin. It was covered in old markings, Zavarian symbols of freedom, resistance, rebirth. This place, she whispered, was the final breath of my ancestors. Now it will be the first step of something new. Kane joined her. What happens now? Shari turned toward him. We tell the others. The ones still hiding. The ones still afraid. We show them they're not alone. Kane placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll come after you. Again. I hope they do, she said, her voice steady. Because this time, I won't be alone either. They rested a short while, drying their gear, eating what rations they had left. Kane rigged a beacon near the cave mouth using one of the shattered drones. It sent a scrambled signal into space, not to the humans, not to the hybrids, but to allies, survivors. Then they began climbing out of the basin through a broken tunnel. It was steep and rough, but it led upward. After hours of climbing, they emerged at the edge of a cliff high above the desert. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in fire orange and deep violet. The wind blew strong, carrying the scent of freedom. Below, far in the distance, movement shimmered, small shapes. Kane raised his lens. Transports, not military. Refugees? Shari looked. Her face lit up. Yes, my people, they've returned. They followed the signal. They descended the rocky slope toward the camp. As they neared, Zavarian elders stepped forward, scarred, tired, but still proud. Shari spoke quickly in her language. The words Kane didn't understand, but he could feel their meaning in the way the people stood straighter, the way they looked at Shari with wide eyes. She turned back to Kane and translated softly. They thought I was dead. They thought there was no hope. Kane tilted his head. What changed? You, she said. You changed everything. Later that night, they sat around a fire made of glowing rootwood. The Zavarians listened closely as Shari spoke of the hybrids, of the implants, of the ruins. She told them how one human didn't treat her like an animal, how he caught her not to harm, but to save. An elder stood and spoke to Cain directly. "You are not like the others." Cain shook his head. "No, but there are more like me out there, humans who would help. We just need to find them." The elder nodded slowly. "Then let us stand together, not as prey, not as hunters, but as allies." In the morning, Cain prepared to leave. He checked his weapons, packed his gear, and stood at the edge of the camp. Shari approached him, her steps light. "You're going?" "For now," he said. "If I stay, I might bring attention. I'll move quietly, watch from the shadows, hit them where they're not ready." She looked up at him. "Will I see you again?" Cain smiled slightly. "You'll hear the stories." She took his hand. "I'd rather see the man myself." They stood there for a moment, two warriors from different worlds, connected by one choice. Shari reached into her belt and handed him a small stone marked with Zavarian symbols. "A sign. If you carry it, my people will know you are a friend." Cain nodded and placed the stone in his vest. Then he turned and walked into the desert. The suns rose behind him, casting his shadow long across the sand. And in the wind, in every grain of red dust, the story spread. She thought outrunning a human was easy, until he caught her with his strength, and held her heart with his honor. Now they run no more. They rise.